A lot of people are shocked to find out that they do not have a retirement income plan. They have a big pile of money and maybe even an advisor that gave them a good Monte Carlo score and told them they could retire. But having a good pot of money and even a good Monte Carlo score is very different than a retirement income plan. A pile of money is not going to help us understand how that money should create the income, which accounts we should draw from, which moves we should make to lower the tax bill, and what investments are aligned to which particular income goal. Think about building a house. You can be told that you have enough money to afford that house. But being told that you can afford the house is very different than designing a blueprint to actually create and make that house a reality. You still need someone to draw the design. You still need to pour the foundation, buy the materials, and put all those materials together in a way that allows your family to live in comfort for your peace of mind. And retirement is often approached the same way. You have this pile of money, but you still need a blueprint that allows you to take all the moving pieces and create both reliable income today while still being on pace to achieve other goals in the future. The difference is those with the biggest balances are not always those with the most peace of mind. Those that have a clear understanding of how the income is being created, how the money will grow in the future, and what the taxes look like for their decisions tend to thrive in retirement. In this video, I'm going to go over the 5 keys to a retirement income plan to help set you up for success in the next chapter. Over the last 2 decades, I've worked with thousands of families as they've navigated their retirement. And what I've noticed over that time period is it's not always the largest balance that correlates with peace of mind in retirement. Those that are most confident in retirement have a very clear understanding and plan for their retirement income and the goals in the next chapter. I'm Brennan, owner of Decima Wealth Consulting and certified financial planner. And in this video, I'm going to go over the 5 keys to a retirement income plan and the exact framework I use with every family we work with. By the end of the video, my hope is that you will have more confidence and understand the difference between a big pile of money and a blueprint for retirement success. Now, before we get started, let's use a real client example. And for the sake of being anonymous, let's call them Jill and Phil. Jill retired a few years ago, and she retired with a little bit over $1 million. But Jill did all of the boring, unglamorous work before retirement. She sat down and really tracked her budget. She knew exactly what she was spending each month. She knew exactly what sources of income she had coming in, and she had a really clear understanding of what difference needed to be supported from her savings and her nest egg. But then Jill took it one step further when we put together a plan. She knew exactly what amount of her income should come from each account to keep her tax bill the lowest. She knew exactly what investments were set aside for that retirement income and what investments were at risk and growing for the future. When the market fluctuated, it didn't impact Jill's ability to do the things she loved doing in retirement. Whether the market was up, down, or sideways, she was confident she could spend time visiting her grandkids, gardening, and having fun the way she had always planned. Now, another client I work with, Phil retired with substantially more money. Phil had almost $10 million in retirement, and Phil had never budgeted in his entire life, and he wasn't going to start now that he was in retirement. Phil had run the Monte Carlo scores by himself, and he had run them with other advisors, and all of the planning he did said, you have more than enough money to afford retirement. But the difference was Phil had no idea how much he was actually spending. He didn't have any plan that told him which accounts he should draw from. He didn't know which part of his portfolio was for income or protection and which portion of his money was for long-term growth. Phil also started spending much more than what he put in those retirement models. He was joining country clubs, buying new cars, buying a boat. And all of a sudden, when the market started to wobble, Phil started feeling very, very anxious that he didn't have enough money to fund his lifestyle. So the takeaway here is it's not necessarily the balance. Phil had a lot more money than Jill. But Phil was not confident in his retirement. He did not have the peace of mind. And every time the market fluctuated, he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to sustain his lifestyle. So having more money does not mean we don't need a plan. Not having a plan with more money just means the mistakes are that much more expensive. So let's go over the 5 keys to help you have a clear understanding for your retirement. All right, now the first key is probably the one that people dislike the most, but it is the most helpful. It is not about the amount you have saved for retirement. It is about what it costs to live your lifestyle in retirement. Now think about that. If you have a goal that you're planning for and you don't know what that goal costs, how do you know if you can afford it? So start by looking at your expenses. What are the bills that you are spending on every single month or every single year that are going to continue in retirement? What are the expenses that are going to stop when you no longer retire? Maybe commuting expenses or dry cleaning expenses. What are the expenses that you'd like to add? Maybe you're traveling more. Maybe you're visiting family more. Maybe you want to take up new hobbies or join new clubs. So add all of that in and see what that looks like on an ongoing basis. Now, don't forget things like, home repairs every few years, new cars, maybe weddings or education goals. Add up all of those numbers, and then we build the rest of the plan around it. But the key is knowing what it's going to cost to live your quality of life. And in my experience, those that know their budget have significantly more confidence and peace of mind in retirement than those that have no clue what they're spending and are relying on guesswork. Key number 2, adding up your sources of guaranteed income. Think about Social Security, pensions if you're lucky enough to have them. Maybe you have a guaranteed income annuity. Maybe you have a really dependable rent tenant. But once we know what those sources of income are, we can subtract them from our expenses. Now, if there is a gap, that's going to give us a really clear understanding of what our nest egg needs to make up in order for us to live our retirement lifestyle. Now, we believe that our essential expenses should not be impacted by the market. So if we have a gap here, that's going to give us a really clear picture of what should be in a protection bucket, allowing you to live your lifestyle whether the market is up, down, or sideways. But we can only do that once we know what sources of income are coming in and what that gap our portfolio needs to make up actually is. Key number 3 is making sure we keep more of our nest egg by understanding the tax impact of our decisions. And we do that by understanding where we are in our tax bracket and where certain triggers and levels are that potentially cause us to lose more of our money. Now, what that is going to tell us is the hierarchy of withdrawals, where you should draw from first, or which percentage should come from which account. It's going to tell us if you have wiggle room for Roth conversions to create more tax-free growth for the future. It's going to help you avoid paying unnecessary costs for Medicare. And it's going to help make sure that you continue to qualify for credits and deductions based off your age and your income. But none of that is possible without knowing exactly where you are in your tax bracket. And once we know our taxes, we can then build the investment strategy around your tax bracket and your income needs. Key number 4 is making sure we align parts of our nest egg for specific goals. If you think about your kitchen, chances are you don't have one drawer that has all your food, all your silverware, all your plates, all your utensils. You have certain drawers that are used for certain reasons. And when we're working, we typically have 4 components to our financial picture. We have a salary that hopefully pays for our month-to-month bills. We have an emergency fund that covers those surprises that are outside of the normal budget. We have a bonus that maybe we treat ourselves in the short term, or we put it away for a goal in the future. And then we have our retirement savings, our 401k, for saving for way down the road. Now, where a lot of anxiety in retirement comes from is now the future becomes the present, and our 401k is tasked with doing all 4 of those goals. It's tasked with being the salary, it's tasked with being the emergency fund, and it's tasked with being the bonus as well as saving for the future. And that's like having a junk drawer and hoping that you're pulling out the right thing at the exact right time. It's possible, but it's stressful, it's cluttered. So the key number 4 is really aligning certain things for certain tasks. Having an emergency fund that has at least 1 year of cash in it, because whether you're working or retired, if your HVAC or car has a major maintenance need, they don't care if you're working or retired. Once we have our emergency fund in place, think of that like the seatbelt, right? That's keeping us anchored in. We then want to make sure we have our protection. And there's really 4 things most people want to protect in retirement. They want to protect our income. So we want to carve off money to cover the gap for the next few years or fund more guaranteed income, right? So protected income. We then want to protect our balance. Most people tend to want more certainty in retirement. So having a portion that may not necessarily be for income, but just allows you to sleep at night, really useful for a lot of families. Most people want to protect from a major medical expense, dementia, Alzheimer's, or a stroke, derailing their family's well-being. So protecting against those later in life catastrophes. And then most people want to protect their legacy and make sure if something happens to them, their loved ones are still going to be in a good spot. So knowing which amount should be in protection is like the brake pedal. Before we even hit the gas pedal, we want to make sure we have enough protected to weather the good times and the bad times. And then finally, once we solve that, we can now think about the future. And that remaining portion is what's going to be at risk. So key number 4 is determining what each goal is going to cost and making sure we have certain assets assigned to that goal. And the way that we do that here at Decima Wealth is we really build out the plan based off your income needs, your legacy goals, what you want to protect, and the most tax-efficient account to accomplish that. Key number 5 is understanding the appropriate amount of risk for where you are in life. On one side of that, we don't want to be so risky that a major market dip at the beginning of retirement completely derails our ability to pay the bills or causes us a stroke or high blood pressure. So we want to make sure that we don't have so much risk where the market is jeopardizing our short-term ability to enjoy life. On the other side of that, we hopefully have a long, healthy retirement in front of us. Hopefully it's decades long. And as anyone has seen, prices tend to go up over decades. If you look at the cost of hotels, airlines, going out to dinner, groceries, even something as simple as a McDonald's cheeseburger, the price today is significantly more expensive than it was 20 years ago. So from a planning standpoint, key number 5 is making sure we also have enough risk to not jeopardize our short-term ability to pay the bills, but enough risk to outpace inflation and keep up with price hikes along the way. Now, putting all 5 of those keys together, here's what really happens. When you know your retirement budget and you know your income and you know which accounts you should be drawing from and what the tax impact is, and you have everything appropriately sectioned off for emergencies, for protecting yourself, and for long-term growth, something really, really powerful happens. You stop looking at the balance and the fluctuations and wondering if you're going to be okay. You just know. And that knowing comes from a clear blueprint of which parts of your plan are allocated to which goal, which money is paying the bills, and which money is for the future, and how do you do it in the most tax-friendly way. And you don't necessarily need a bigger balance to do that. As an example, Phil did not have any of those pieces in place, and the retirement mountain in front of him seemed overwhelming, insurmountable. On the other hand, Jill did have all of those in place, and instead of worrying about the mountain, she was just out there enjoying the climb and enjoying the view. Now, the choice is yours, but the more organized you are, the more peace of mind it tends to bring in retirement. So if you feel like you've done a wonderful job saving, and you feel like you can afford retirement, but you just don't have the confidence or the organization that a retirement income plan brings, go check out the book I wrote, The Summit and Beyond. I give you a full framework on how you can design your own retirement income plan. The link for that is in the description. And if after reading that book you still want a little bit more support, I do work with a select number of families to help them design and create retirement plans that allow them to give peace of mind and attention back to what really matters. I'm Brennan Decima, owner of Decima Wealth Consulting. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next week.